A man was murdered, and people aren't sad. A man was gunned down in the street in broad daylight, and people are saying he deserved it because of the job he did, when they should be worried about who is next. The recent murder of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, has ignited a troubling and divisive national conversation. Instead of the expected responses of sadness or outrage, much of the public has reacted with disturbing glee. On social media and in commentary, many claim he deserved it because of his role as the head of a major health insurance company. This reaction raises profound questions about justice, societal values, and the growing normalization of violence when ideological grievances are at play. Thompson was gunned down in broad daylight on a New York street, yet instead of reflecting on the tragedy, many are using his death to advance narratives about corporate greed and the supposed evils of the health insurance industry. The case is a grim reminder of how political fervor can cloud moral judgment. Instead of asking who will be next or are we safe, the public conversation has revolved around whether his job justifies the killing. This is part of a larger cultural shift in which violence is increasingly tolerated or even celebrated when it aligns with political or social beliefs. In a city already plagued by lawlessness, where random assaults dominate the headlines, Thompson's murder still stands out, not for the crime itself, but for the reaction to it. New York has become synonymous with mob rule and polarized law enforcement, from random attacks on Asian Americans to the prosecution of Good Samaritans like Daniel Penny, who acted to prevent violence but found himself on trial for his efforts. The public's response to Thompson's death is even more unsettling because it goes beyond indifference and into outright celebration. The trend should concern everyone, regardless of political alignment. When murder is excused or celebrated, the foundations of law and morality are undermined. The death of any person, no matter his role in society, should never be cause for rejoicing. This is just a summary. For more details on this topic, download and subscribe to the 10th Man podcast. The gleeful reaction to Thompson's death is rooted in a broader narrative of resentment towards big companies, particularly health insurers like United Healthcare. Critics often accuse these corporations of greed and systemic abuse, but these arguments frequently oversimplify the complexities of the insurance industry. United Healthcare, like any insurer, has a critical role in managing costs and ensuring the sustainability of the system. While it's easy to vilify these companies, the reality is that they push back against unreasonable claims to prevent the entire system from collapsing under its own weight. Without this pushback, healthcare costs would skyrocket, making insurance unaffordable for most Americans. Critics fail to recognize that denying certain claims is not a moral failing, but a necessity. If every claim were approved without scrutiny, resources would quickly be depleted, leaving nothing for those who truly need care. For example, emergency rooms are frequently used for non-emergencies, and part of an insurer's job is to discourage this misuse. Ironically, many of the loudest complaints about insurance companies come from people who waste healthcare resources. Americans frequently dispose of unused medications during pill roundups or flush them down the toilet, all while lamenting the high cost of drugs. This contradiction highlights the need for personal accountability alongside systemic reforms. And public outrage about corporate profits lacks evidence. Critics argue that companies like United Healthcare are exploiting consumers, yet their financial metrics tell a different story. Key indicators such as price-to-earnings ratios and dividend percentages reveal that United Healthcare operates within standard industry norms. If the company were truly reaping excess profits, its stock performance would reflect that. Yet a quick look at its balance sheet shows no extraordinary gains. The hypocrisy of the outrage becomes even more apparent when considering that many Americans directly benefit from these corporations through their retirement accounts. Pension funds, 401ks, and IRAs often include investments in health insurance companies. If United Healthcare were the gold mine critics assume it is, Why aren't investors flocking to its stock? The answer is simple. United Healthcare is a large and successful company, but it is not engaging in the kind of exploitative behavior often alleged. And that's without mentioning the thousands of people, our fellow citizens, who earn their living working in the private insurance sector. Do we target them next? The lack of a clear motive initially in Thompson's murder fueled widespread speculation. The cryptic words deny, depose, defend were found on the shell casings of the crime scene, leading everyone to jump to the conclusion that there was an ideological link. While those assumptions seem to now be correct, they might not have been. The killer might just as logically have been acting out of vengeance disguised as politics. In any case, he's now provided a logical distraction for anyone bearing a personal grudge against a businessman. Any personal vengeance against a businessman from now on will be assumed to be political. So watch out, CEOs. Thompson's murder is part of a larger pattern of political violence and public desensitization. High-profile cases such as the assassination attempts on President Trump or attacks on Supreme Court justices reveal a society increasingly willing to justify violence for political or ideological reasons. Even public officials such as Maxine Waters and Joe Biden have been accused of encouraging aggressive behavior toward their political opponents. But when violence becomes a tool for ideological expression, no one is safe. Today it's a health insurance CEO. Tomorrow it could be anyone who holds an unpopular opinion or occupies a controversial role. The public's reaction to Brian Thompson's murder reflects a troubling moral decay. Thompson's death is a tragedy, not an opportunity for moral grandstanding. Murder is murder, and it is always wrong, no matter the victim's identity or occupation. We mustn't justify crime, rather, we must reaffirm our commitment to justice, accountability, and the sanctity of human life.